review a little bit from yesterday. We were talking about the Berlin Wall. Now, we talked about more than the Berlin Wall yesterday, but I'm not going to go back that far. If you were not here yesterday and you didn't get the lecture on the Bay of Pigs, you're going to want to get on the video and make sure you understand them. Okay? So, we talked yesterday about several things. We talked about Kennedy's cabinet yesterday. Is that correct, or was that the day before? We started with the Peace Corps, didn't we? We finished the Peace Corps yesterday and the Bay of Pigs. So make sure that you did not get that information. You got to know that and be ready to go by Tuesday. But when we talked about the Berlin Wall, we mentioned that at the end of World War II in 1945, more than 55 million people died and Europe laid in complete ruins. Okay? Russia's Red Army took control of the city of Berlin, and it cost them 200,000 men to do that. Okay? Now, the reason Russia wanted Berlin is because they saw it as a spoil of war over Germany. And so we don't get confused, Russia did not fight on the same side as Germany. Even though that we're not allies with them now, they fought on our side in World War II. Now, remember after World War II, the country of Germany was divided right in half. The western part was West Germany under the control of the Allies, non-communist, and the eastern part of the country of Germany was communist under Russian control. And what was really weird about that is they also split the city of Berlin in half, the western half being non-communist and the eastern half being communist. But the weird thing about Berlin is it was actually inside, 110 miles inside East Germany. So, as we mentioned yesterday, the Soviet leaders were not real pleased with that. Soviet Premier Stalin saw West Berlin as a thorn in the side of the East German occupancy of, Russian occupancy of East Germany. And then he basically blocked all roads into West Berlin so that people were kind of forced to be in one spot. After he took control of the Soviet Union, new President Nikita Khrushchev actually looked at Berlin as more of a malignant tumor than a thorn. He didn't like it at all, but he did like the opportunity to give the Western Hemisphere a bad time. And although that seemed a little off color yesterday, I want to explain what I was saying, so if you watch the video, you get it. Khrushchev stated that having Berlin was like being able to squeeze the testicles of the West whenever he felt like it. So whenever he wanted to aggravate the Western Hemisphere, he would make some sort of a move that maybe he was going to try to take West Berlin. And I'm just telling you that West Berlin is a big hot spot, because under no circumstances are the Western Allies, especially the United States, going to let Russia take West Berlin. It's not going to happen. It would result in World War if they tried to do it. It would not happen. Okay, so we were that possessive of West Berlin and the freedom there. Now, we mentioned that President Truman, to a point, and President Eisenhower had their testicles squeezed several times by Khrushchev during the time they were in the presidency, because he wanted to make them uncomfortable with Berlin. In other words, he made several threats to take West Berlin. And when Kennedy took the office of the presidency, he made a decision that he was not going to let that happen to him. So what did he do? What did Kennedy do? We kind of put Jacob in a real bad spot yesterday, but it was kind of interesting. So rather than have the pressure put on you all the time and have to feel the pain that Khrushchev loved giving you, Kennedy decided that we'll talk and try to compromise. So in June of 1961, they agreed to meet in Austria. So President Kennedy of the United States and Nikita Khrushchev of the Soviet Union have set up a meeting in June of 1961 in Austria, and the entire topic of discussion is what? Berlin. Okay? That's where we finished yesterday. Now, this meeting lasted 2 days between Kennedy and Khrushchev. Again, the entire topic of discussion was the situation in Berlin. Really, unfortunately, I think Kennedy was trying to get some things done and relationships improved. Khrushchev really enjoyed that ability, as we mentioned, to cause the Western Hemisphere some trouble. So really, during these 2-day meeting, nothing was settled. It was really kind of cantankerous, to be honest with you. And basically what happened is after the meeting, both leaders went back to their countries and increased their military strength. That was the result of this meeting. So again, in June of 1961, President Kennedy met with Soviet Premier Khrushchev in Austria. The meeting lasted 2 days. The entire topic of discussion was the situation in Berlin. Nothing was settled. It was kind of a cantankerous deal, more on the part of Khrushchev than Kennedy. Khrushchev was just kind of a jackass a lot of times, and he just loved to irritate the United States. He really did. So after the meeting, nothing was settled. President Kennedy went back to the United States, Premier Khrushchev went back to the Soviet Union, and the only thing accomplished was that both sides increased their military strength. So, let's talk about Berlin a little bit, some statistics that might be interesting to you. Between the years of 1949 and 1960, it was estimated that approximately 3 million East Germans fled from East Berlin to where? West Berlin. Okay? And that was a problem for Russia and a problem for East Germany. So again, I'll repeat that. From between the years of 1949 and 1960, it was estimated that about 3 million East Germans decided that living in freedom was better than living under communism, and so they made their way to West Berlin and sometimes West Germany. Now, why would that be a problem for the communist end of that deal? They were very good. They were losing population. That was a concern. Okay? Now, nobody said too much about that until July of '61. This was like a month after Khrushchev and Kennedy met. And they did some more statistical research, and they were estimating that people from East Berlin were flowing into West Berlin at about 1,000 a day. And that's when the Soviet Union really became alarmed. So in July of 1961, the number rose from, you know, it didn't rise, but it went from, you know, a vast amount of people coming in over a large period of time, an 11-year period of time, to 1,000 a day. Okay, and that's when they became very concerned. By August, a month later, they estimated that it rose to 2,500 a day. So in July of 1961, about 1,000 people a day were going from East Berlin to West Berlin. And a month later, it estimated it went up to 2,500 a day were moving from East Berlin to West Berlin. Well, that's when it really got kind of Western in East Germany, and especially in East Berlin. So what happened on August 13th, 1961? What happened because of this? This might be for a t-shirt. Who doesn't have a t-shirt? Who doesn't have a t-shirt? You got a t-shirt? Okay, who tell me what happened.
They started construction at Berlin Wall.
Close. Okay, that's close. But that would be a difficult decision to make. But you're right there, Brianna. That's t-shirt material. You're right there. What they did is they began to put up obstacles to seal off the streets and the crossings so they couldn't very easily get from East Berlin to West Berlin. So on August 13th, 1961 is when East German police began for the first time to put obstacles into the streets and crossings from East Berlin to West Berlin. They were putting obstacles, which, as Brianna said, eventually is going to lead to a wall. Okay? But it was on August 13th, 1961 that East German police began to construct obstacles to seal off the streets and crossings into West Berlin. And you'll see those on the video when I show you. Okay? What do you think these obstacles might have been? What's that, Levi? Barbed wire was a big one. And pieces of riprap or concrete, just anything that would be hard to impasse was what they were using. So these obstacles included barbed wire, fencing. And they were all constructed on what side? The East German side, because they couldn't infringe on the West German side, right? So all of these obstacles are on the property line, so to speak, on the East German side. Okay? So all these obstacles, including barbed wire fencing, were constructed in East Germany and put on the East German side. None of these obstacles touched any boundaries in West Berlin. Okay? And as Brianna said, these obstacles eventually became a concrete wall. And the wall, do you think they cared if anybody fled from West Berlin to East Berlin? If somebody wanted to come from West Berlin to East Berlin, do you think they'd let them go over the wall?
Yeah.
Sure they would. They didn't want anybody going from East Berlin to West Berlin. So eventually, these obstacles and barbed wire fencing became a huge concrete wall that kept the East Berliners from going to West Berlin. Anybody know how long this wall was? Just a guess? What's that? No, not how, no, that's good, okay. See, I didn't word that very well. That is true. The wall stayed there as long as 19. How long was the wall? How, you know, from here to the guidance office, or how far was it? How long was that thing? Anybody know? Anybody want to guess? Anybody can get within 15 miles, okay. Which tells you that it's more than 15 miles. Anybody want to guess? Take a round guess. Hey, how's it going?
Great.
Hey, let's see if you know this. You might know this because this is your time period, Mrs. Bishop. How long in miles was the Berlin Wall? Take a guess. You might be close. I think I know what you're going to say, but you'll be close if you say that. How long was the Berlin Wall? How long? A little longer, actually. 97 miles long. Yeah, I thought most people say 100. Yeah. What do you got going? Anything?
Yeah, call me later on an end date. You didn't do an end date on a kid yesterday, and we lost all their.
Oh, really? Would that be Mickelson? Who's right there? Okay.
Yeah, I think some teachers might kill you. So will you call me later? I think you'll have to call over to Janet and have her
Okay.
undo that for a little
Okay.
bit. You know,
So the window is closed on end date now.
you have to end date,
Yeah.
and then that's okay. Then we can see them.
Yeah. There's a story behind it.
I don't know what it
Yeah.
is. but
Okay, it's
will you
okay.
take care of
But anyway, 97 miles was how long the Berlin Wall was. How high do you think it was? How high?
10 foot.
Close, 12. It was 12 feet high and 97 miles long. And it encircled the entire city of West Berlin, basically. Okay, even though it was on the East German side.
Encircled what?
It encircled basically the entire city of West Berlin. Although, was it on West Berlin soil? No. They built it around West Berlin on the East Berlin side. Okay? Now, what would be a real emotional problem with that? Families were separated. Thousands of friends and families were torn apart. So Berliners were in despair. You had families torn right apart. Some lived on the east side, some lived on the west side. Now, would they have let those families get together if they wanted to come to the east side? Probably. But that wasn't where they wanted to go. Okay? So, what do you think they did with those that attempt to escape, either under the wall or over the wall, or they shot them? East German police shot them. So those attempting to escape were shot down by East German police. They were all stationed all along the wall, making sure that nobody went from communism to freedom. So those attempting to escape were shot down. Now, we don't know exactly how many, because there was a lot of secrecy to this, but obviously there were many people who successfully and unsuccessfully tried to escape communism to West Berlin. Some were successful, some obviously were not, but they did try. Okay, nobody was trying to escape into East Berlin, I can assure you. Okay, well, you're the United States of America, you're President Kennedy, and you're not liking any of this. But he did not intervene for 3 reasons. There were 3 reasons why he did not intervene. Now, these will be worth a t-shirt if somebody can get those. Anybody have any idea why he didn't intervene?
He didn't want to, break ties yet. He knew that, he knew that he would be, he didn't want to get on the bad side of him.
Well, you're kind of close.
He screwed up with the first foreign affair he attempted, so he didn't want to rush into another foreign affair.
Okay, you're thinking there too. But there's 3 specific reasons why the United States didn't intervene. Think about the situation. Not an easy thing to answer. I'd be pretty impressed if you got it done. How about it? Anybody have an idea why he didn't intervene? Okay, I'll give you the first one, maybe you get the second one. He realized, think about this, what was the threat that Khrushchev was, he always wanted to squeeze the testicles of the Western Hemisphere by threatening to do what? Take West Berlin. When he put the wall up, it assured Kennedy that he wasn't going to try to take West Berlin because he was hemming people in and out. He was going to keep them in East Berlin. He wasn't attempting to take West Berlin. So he put up a barrier. So Kennedy realized that by putting up this wall in Berlin, that Khrushchev was not making preparations to take all of Berlin under Soviet leadership, which may give you an idea of why, the second reason of why he did not intervene. The first being, again, that he realized that Khrushchev putting up a wall meant that he was not trying to take West Berlin. Did we ever think we were going to get East Berlin to be non-communist? Did we even think that was a possibility? No. But we were going to make darn sure that West Berlin was not going to be communist. So Kennedy said, well, I'm not going to intervene in that. At least I know he's not trying to take West Berlin. What would be another reason why he didn't intervene that kind of ties in with that? Well, that you didn't get it, but I'm going to give you that one. Kennedy was quoted as saying, quote, "A wall is much better than a war." So he didn't want to take a chance of intervening and leading to what would be World War III, because maybe the Russians would think we had intentions on what? East Berlin. Okay? So, good, Emma. So Kennedy was quoted as saying, "A wall is better than a war." Now, what's that? Go ahead. It could be 2 or 3, but that was 3 on my list, but that's good. Okay, so we're talking about the first reason why he didn't intervene is because the wall meant that Khrushchev was not trying to take West Berlin. Okay, he also realized that a wall was better than a war. So if you had a conflict in Berlin, we could have a serious problem. But what's the next reason that he didn't intervene? Okay, was he any longer getting? Was he going to? How would I put this? Is he going to have his testicles squeezed now if they put a wall up? No, because he realized that the Berlin Wall diffused the crisis between the Western Allies and the Soviet Union. The crisis was, is he going to take West Berlin? Okay, so Kennedy knew by the wall, number one, that he was not making preparations to take West Berlin. Number two, he believed that this wall, although he didn't like it, would diffuse some of the bad tensions between the two countries. And number three, he said a wall is better than a war. He didn't want to intervene and get things going before it escalated into World War III. So he lived with it. He didn't like it at all, but he lived with it because he felt it diffused the problem. He felt that it ensured him that they weren't trying to take West Berlin, and he thought that, you know, I don't like the wall, but the wall is a lot better than us going to war. That was his philosophy. But Kennedy was very popular in West Berlin, and in June 1963 he visited there in one of his most famous appearances of his presidency. So in June of 1963, Kennedy visited West Berlin. Not very much before what?
June what?
June of 63, so just a few months before what? His assassination. So President Kennedy visited West Berlin, and it was an incredible, vast, cheering crowd, huge crowd there to see him because he was scheduled to give a speech. And here's just a couple of quotes from his speech. The first one I think hits me the best. No, I don't think so. You've all heard the end of it. We'll get to that. But the thing that really hit with me, and you should think about what it means, he said in his speech, "Freedom has many difficulties and democracy is not perfect." Okay? Freedom has many difficulties and democracy is not perfect. But we've never had to put up a wall to keep our people in. Okay? And he's criticizing East Germany for putting up a wall that forces the people to stay under a government they don't like. So he said, freedom has many difficulties and democracy is not perfect, but we've never had to put up a wall to keep our people in. And then he finished by saying, all free men, wherever they may live, are citizens of Berlin. And therefore, as a free man, I take pride in the words, anybody know? Ich bin in Berlin. I am a Berliner, which some people think says it's a jelly roll, but I don't ever buy that. So again, he says, all free men, whether they may live, are citizens of Berlin. And therefore, as a free man, I take pride in the words, Ich bin Berliner. I don't say it very well, but you'll hear it from him. Okay? So basically what he's stating is that he's a free man, and since he's a free man, he's a Berliner also. Okay? Well, the speech made him incredibly popular in West Berlin. Well documented. Okay? Now I'm going to show you a picture up here. This isn't Berlin, but Dr. McGee brought this back, I believe, from Austria. And he was so popular overseas that when he was in Austria, he found this memorial plaque of Kennedy in that country, had his picture taken and gave it to me. West Berlin has many memorials to President Kennedy still there today. Okay? Now, as Jules said, which I was quite proud of, the Berlin Wall stood for nearly 30 years as a menacing symbol of the division between communism and non-communism in Europe. And it was removed on November 8th, 1989. November 8th, 1989. So, again, it stood for nearly 30 years and was removed in 1989. Now, there are two things that I really strongly believe that John Kennedy would have loved to have seen in his lifetime. Unfortunately, it didn't happen because of his assassination. One, obviously, would have been the Berlin Wall coming down, and the second would have been man landing on the moon. And then we'll talk about that in our lecture to come. So he missed two key parts of history that he was very instrumental in being involved in. Okay, anybody have any questions on the Berlin Wall? Tuesday, we'll come back and we'll talk about the race for space and talk about this moon landing prediction. Right now, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a video I want you to make sure you're keying into. I want you to make sure you're taking some notes on. Some of the things I've told you, some of the things I have not told you. And I want to make sure that you are understanding. Okay, so you might just keep your notebooks out and be paying attention here. We'll cut a note. What I want you to do in your notebooks today is I want you to look